Yeah, Jeff, any update on Larkin and Ryan? Was just maintenance days, or is there something more?
I just first want to start by saying I want to commend you guys. I don't see any of those Fox Sports Detroit people on here, so we know who's committed to the program and working and who's not. I would just Larks is a maintenance day. Bobby is questionable for tomorrow.
Okay. And the last couple of games going with 7D, if you do or go back to 6, would that be a difficult decision on who to take out? It seems like there's no obvious candidate there. It seems like more balanced this year.
Yeah, I would say there's a whole bunch of guys that have played, pretty similar. I don't think there's guys that have really, really separated themselves and one way or the other, good, necessarily great or bad, and there's a bunch of guys that played pretty good hockey for us, and that's a good problem. A little bit too, you look at and say, okay, what do they bringing to the table for specialty teams? Certain guys are on the power play, certain guys are on the penalty kill. So we'll evaluate it. We haven't made our decision yet what we're doing tomorrow in terms of that. But if when we do go to 6, somebody's going to come out that's probably played decent hockey, and that's the way it goes. We'll have to make the decision we think is best at that time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Next up, Ted Colton, Detroit News.
Jeff, it looks like Brome kind of got bumped out the last game or two. What does he need to do to draw back in, basically?
I like Matthias. I think he's played hard. I think he does a lot of good stuff. I think he plays the right way. I think he's pretty accountable. I don't really like talking about this because I generally, try to focus on process, but the reality is production. And, he's had one assist or one goal, I think, one goal in the 20 some games. And, production is something. It matters, and process matters for sure. And we certainly don't want anybody cheating the game or anything like that, but production does matter. So that's my easy answer for you.
Do you think there is some offense there in him?
I think there is, Ted. I think there is. He certainly shows it in flashes. I think he was really close a lot early and unfortunately didn't get it. So then all of a sudden, you lose some opportunities. Then he was not on the power play, and now you're not playing quite as much, and it's hard to get the same even number of opportunities, so that hurt him a little bit. So I think there's offense there. But the thing is guys have to prove it. I can think whatever I want. Guys have to go out and prove it.
Hey, one more, and I think you kind of alluded to it last night, but just do you possibly see Mantha going on one of his streaks here coming up? The way he's playing?
I hope so. I think, again, Anthony's a guy when he feels good about himself, his game's brought to a whole nother level. And I think he's feeling good, about himself. I think he's feeling confident. When he does that, he plays at a real high level.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yep.
Next up, Helene St. James, Detroit Free Press.
Just with Dylan, do you think that between the injury and you guys had a few little 4-day break there between games, did that benefit him to have to step back, kind of refreshing him, do you think?
Probably be a better question for Dylan. I'd say from my perspective, I thought he came back with as much confidence with the puck as he has had all season. I think he's fought it a little bit with the puck. He's told me that just a little bit in terms of seeing the ice the way, when you're really feeling it, the game slows down when you have the puck, and it hasn't been as slow for him, this year as maybe in the past. And then you start maybe forcing things a little bit. And I think, he seems to have as much confidence with the puck and since he's been back here after that injury and that break, as I've seen him all year.
Thank you.
Next up, Max Bultman with The Athletic.
Hey, Jeff, I'm just curious. You've said in the past that you feel like Anthony can drive a line when he's away from Dylan. I'm just curious, is his game different at all in what he does out there, or kind of how he impacts the game when he is with him versus when he's not with him?
No, I wouldn't say it's different. He's there's very few players in the league that have the talent to drive lines, and that's when I refer to that. When he's on his game and he's using that skill set he has, he can really drive a line. I don't think he plays different though. Like, I think when he's really on his game, he's moving his feet. And so whether that's with Dylan or without Dylan, he can help turn that line into an impactful line for sure. Obviously with Dylan, you put some of your guys that have the higher end talent together, and hopefully you get, exponentially better. And sometimes they have, and sometimes they haven't, but that's what you're hoping for.
And then with Zadina, how are you looking at his season overall at this point? I mean, it seemed like started really good and then maybe took a little while after he came back. I mean, how are you looking at it so far?
I think it's been up and down, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a normal thing. I just think, it's a learning process, and you're learning. He's learned a lot since he's turned pro, and he's continuing to learn. And what he's doing here is learning on the fly in the NHL, and it's not easy. And I think there's been games in the last little stretch where he's been great. I thought he was great in Carolina. I thought that was one of the better games I've seen him play. I thought last night he struggled a little bit, and a lot of times that comes down to confidence too. Like, puck management's one of those things that when you're real confident, you're taking that extra second, you're not afraid to turn a puck over. And then when you're struggling, it seems like everything you do, you turn the puck over, and you can't be successful that way, And so, the one thing that I think all young players, and we're guilty of this enough over the last number of years, is you got to be okay in tight games with nothing happening on a shift and not forcing it. And that's just, that goes back to Zetterberg telling me that a long, long time ago. And that's the reality of it. You just have to be okay with not much happening in a shift. And when you're young, you want something to happen every shift. And it's not the reality of the NHL, especially against really good teams. So, I think it's a learning process for him.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next up, Art Regner, DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi, Jeff. You talked about yesterday about shots on goal and generating more offense or more shots. And we talked to Anthony about it. His goal has always been at least 5 shots on goal. He thinks if he can get 5 shots on net, good things will happen. How do you as a coach try to generate more shots on net? I mean, is it what the opposition's doing? Is it more of a shooter's mindset? Because I agree with what you said last night. Fans always want the players to shoot more. I mean, I understand that. I mean, it looks simple to them, but how difficult is it to generate shots on goal?
Well, I'd also say, Art, I think coaches want players to shoot more until they make that play that ends up in the back door, and then you're like, oh, good play. I mean, I've done that lots in my coaching career. Shoot, oh, nice pass. Listen, what I'm talking about last night is there's a different level of shots. And sometimes you're shooting from outside the scoring square, the scoring area, and sometimes those shots aren't productive. Sometimes those shots, if they're not leading to chaos, they almost can be giveaways. What I'm talking about is when we're in prime scoring areas, trying to look for a better play. It's hard enough to get into those areas. Don't look for a better play. If it's there, fine, but you better make it. I thought last night we were in prime scoring areas and we tried to make a better play instead of take the scoring chance that we got. And that's the difference for me. That would be one area, and the other area would be our defensemen being more ready to shoot pucks. I thought we won ozone faceoffs. We didn't shoot pucks. I think we went low to high. We didn't shoot pucks. So those would be 2 areas when I'm talking about shooting more. That's what I mean. I don't mean just chucking the puck from the boards necessarily, but when you get in those prime areas, take advantage of that shot and don't look for the better play.
Jeff, today it was tweeted out there that the top 3 winning percentages in the NHL right now are Tampa, Florida, and Carolina. I think we all knew the Central Division would be good, but how can you elaborate on this division and how competitive it is, and just how, just from top to bottom, it's just full of like really, really good teams?
It's a really interesting year in a sense that it's hard to compare divisions because we don't play each other at all. So it's really, really difficult. I think everybody in their own division thinks their division's really hard, and we can all kind of pontificate of which one's the hardest, but the proof is not there because we don't play each other. In fact, we won't play each other until the very end, and then sometimes that gets skewed because of injuries and what a playoffs are like. There's no doubt going into the season that I felt like certainly with Tampa and Dallas, that's the 2 teams that were in the finals. I think Carolina's only continuing to get better. Their best players are young. They've built identity over time. They've got a number, they had some other really good young players, inserting into the lineup, becoming bigger factors. So there was no doubt in my mind they were going to be good. I think top to bottom, obviously Chicago surprised a lot of people. But I think anytime you have one of the very best players in the world, and Patrick Kane, that puts you in a position to potentially be successful. Columbus, Nashville, I mean, they're all hard to play against. They all have good decors. So it's a tough division. There's no doubt about it. Now, is it tougher than the East or the North or the West? I can't answer that. I really, we can pontificate about it, but we don't have any proof. I do know our division's hard.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it very much.
That's it for us today. Thanks, everyone.